Rolling.
Good evening, excuse me. This is the Town of Ledyard Town Council Community Relations Committee regular meeting of December 16th at 6:30 p.m. by video conference. This time I'd like to call the order, the roll call. Mike Washington is here. For the record, Bill Soms is here, as well as Councilor Ingalls is here. And Administrative Assistant Roxanne Marr. There's only 5 of us. That's
4.
a short list.
Who's 5th?
4.
Just 4.
Well, you
Yeah.
4. Oh.
Mike, you're an engineer, man. Come on.
I forgot I was one of the people on the 4 on the screen, and I counted myself twice. Okay. It's the snow.
This is
I'll blame it on the
awesome.
snow. For citizen comments, I don't see any citizens present. Therefore, we won't do that. As far as informational items, we had an administrative assistant had an email dated 12/7 on an invite to the Youth and Social Services Community Relations Committee meeting of March 3rd, 2021, and scheduled a public informational forum for March 27th, 2021. We received an email back from the Social Service Coordinator regarding availability to attend the Community Relations meeting of March 3rd and the scheduled public informational. We also received it from the Youth Services Coordinator that they're available to attend the Community Relations meeting of March 3rd and the scheduled public informational forum on April 7th. Review and approval of the prior minutes. Motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of December 2nd, 2020.
So moved. Oh, second. Take your pick. We're both so agreeable.
Motion by Bill.
Oh my gosh.
Councilor Soms, and second by Councilor Ingalls. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Councilor
Aye.
Soms. Councilor Ingalls.
Councilor Soms says aye.
Councilor Ingalls votes aye.
Councilor Washington votes aye. 3 in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. Old business, continue discussion and possible action to draft the Community Relations Committee mission statement. I think we finally nailed it down. I'm going to read the statement that we had from the last meeting. And the mission statement said, the Ledyard Town Council's Community Relations Committee, LTCRC, is charged with being an advocate for residents encountering discrimination when assessing town services. The committee is charged with forwarding recommendations to the town council that promote a welcoming experience and dignified treatment for residents receiving town services. At this time, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt this mission statement.
I will second that.
Now discussion. Second by
just a couple of edits. In the one that I'm looking at, the word last line, it says the town council that promotes. The S needs to go. The committee is charged with forwarding recommendations that promote.
Yes, thank you.
And then I think also the comma after experience should go.
Yes, thank you.
So
noted.
I had only one request or suggestion that we change the word forwarding to providing, or some other word, only because forwarding sounds bureaucratic. Sounds administrative to me.
I can accept
agree
that.
with that. Yep.
So
So we could say making recommendations or providing
I
recommendations.
like providing.
I like
I
providing.
do too.
Yeah.
So as a friendly amendment to the motion, can it read now as the Ledyard Town Council's Community Relations Committee, LTCRC, is charged with being an advocate for residents encountering discrimination when assessing town services. The committee is charged with providing recommendations to the town council that promote a welcoming experience and dignified treatment for residents receiving town services.
Good.
Yes.
I think we could also uncapitalize services. I just noticed that. The first town services, the word services should be uncapitalized.
Oh,
Correct. Good catch, Bill.
thank you, Bill.
Do you want to just adopt those as a friendly amendment?
This would be the, yes,
Friendly amendment, okay.
yes. Okay, I made the motion.
Yeah. I would argue they're not substantive anyway, right?
Correct.
Right.
With that said, Councilor Ingalls votes.
Oh, aye.
Councilor Psalms,
Aye.
Councilor Washington, aye. 3 in favor, none opposed. The mission statement is finalized.
Awesome. I like it. It's short. To the
Yes.
point.
Yeah. Yeah.
That concludes part of the old business. Continued review and discussion of objectives and goals. I thought this. Bear with me.
Yeah, Rox, I don't know what we need to do about the objectives and goals. I think we had decided that if we could get 3 quality forums on the calendar for the 2021 calendar year, that would be excellent.
Right.
Yes.
I would also, I don't know, I want to throw this out there and see what you think of it. In terms of measurable goals, I don't know if we keep an archive of complaints, but I was wondering if that might be a measurable goal, if we could reduce the number of complaints. I don't know if it's doable. I don't know if it's measurable.
I don't
know
not
if we want that to be a goal.
The part of me thinks that as it gets better known and people get more comfortable with the idea of coming to the committee with an issue or concern, that the numbers should grow. And I think it's really it's really more of a function of the issues that come in and our ability to resolve, or our ability to resolve, not so much resolve them, but either address that they go to the council, or it may not even be an issue. It may not be. It may be an educational component that needs to be explained. So I'm not adverse to the idea of collecting how many complaints that come in, or concerns or questions come in, and then looking to see how they kind of fluctuate over the year. Do they go up? Do they go down? What's the body of the issue? Is it theme driven to get a better idea what people's issues may be? And a lot of it may fall to the side due to education. So I think tracking what the issues are, the number of complaints that come in, I'll use the word complaint or concerns that come in. I think that's a good thing to do regardless on the goal side. Just to know what's coming in and be able to say, yeah, we've had that issue come up. We've addressed that issue. At least we thought we did. Maybe it's been, so there's a nuance to the new issue that's being brought up, or it's actually a rehash of a past issue, and the person may not know that, and it could be a fallback on a system breakdown that's systemic to that, maybe a training issue or something like that, where someone has come to the committee. We've recommended something to the council. The council has adjusted, modified, done whatever they need to do to, I won't use the word, I'll use the word resolve, but it doesn't mean resolve the issue, but address the issue. And then it may creep up again. I see this in the sense of, at my workplace, we put in policies and procedures, and at times we have people who slide back, not intentional, but they get complacent in some of the things they do. And what happens is they pick up a bad habit that they didn't have before. And so you have to go back and kind of re-educate, say, oh, here's what we're tasked with doing, here's what we're trying to do, here's what your function is. So I like the idea of keeping track of the complaints that come in. I'm not sure if that's if the goal would be, of course, to reduce the number we get.
Right.
And
I'm not sure how to make sure we were gathering them in a way, like, I don't, like, what would count as a complaint? If somebody were to go on the Facebook forum and say something, did we log that as an official complaint? So I had a lot of ideas about the workability of it, but I thought I'd throw it out there as a potential way to measure our improvement. It might be too messy. I don't know. Or even if there was a way to measure, I'm going to use the word quality, the quality of the complaint, meaning, is it really is it something that's really serious, like a serious oversight on our part, or was it something that was a foible and we were able to fix it easily? So again, I had a lot of thoughts about whether or not it was even doable, but thought I'd throw it out there.
Councilor Soms?
I think of an IT help desk. IT help desk get complaints all the time, and they have goals and reduce the number of complaints. Then it's reduce the time to resolution, increase the number resolved. And what do? It's a huge problem with IT because they close tickets that shouldn't be closed so that they can say, yeah, we closed a bunch of tickets, we solved a bunch of problems, when they really didn't. It just becomes a measurement nightmare. And,
okay.
And I think it's a good idea, but I think the mechanics and the actual implementation would be a full-time job for several people.
Meaning us.
we did say last week that we would set some goals, and the minutes state them pretty clearly. It said we would schedule 2 informational forums in 2021. We'd aim to attract 20 or more residents to attend the informational forums, and we would obtain feedback and information from the community relative to their concerns and experiences with town services.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
we could do that with continued forums, but I think it would be a mistake to say more complaints is a bad thing or reducing complaints is a good thing, because there's just so many ways to wing that
Mm-hmm.
we just want to, I think, open a portal, if you will, or a gateway, and do that through these informational forums. And I think that's a good goal for 2021, and we can always add to it or change it as we go.
Then
Okay.
what we'll do is we'll Roxanne, Roxanne?
So I just have a question. So does this mean those are your goals and we no longer need to include this item on the next agenda, or do you want to continue to assess your goals and objectives as you go along?
I think we should review them periodically.
Yes, we can put it on. I don't see a problem carrying it on the agenda. It'll be a short discussion, because as we talked about, one of the things was on the informationals, we've done one already. We've got a second one that's going to come up in April, and there probably will be another one later that year, given how much information is coming out of social services. So I think we're going to meet our goals. So we can talk about it as we go through each one. Maybe reach back around to Chief Rich and see if he's had anybody contact him since he did his informational. And
So maybe a goal to follow up with other informational items, to follow up with those presenters to see if they get anything.
Yes, that's a great goal, because that's going to be probably the first line of feedback, because I think if the informational goes well and they start going to, say, the police department in this case, for relative to those special services where you can call if you have a special needs child or something of that nature, or you have a concern and you feel comfortable going there, and he says, yes, there has been an uptick in people coming to us, asking us for information, asking for resources from us, then that means it was effective, in my opinion. So in that case, the informational process we did with the police department would have shown that was a I think that's a measurable goal. If that happens, I think it's also a very positive goal, result of having had informational. Does that make sense?
I agree. Yes.
Okay.
I
So
think we could maybe keep an eye on Ledyard Police's Facebook page and also pay attention to the Ledyard Community Resource and see what comments are out there about these things.
Yes, because it's if people are willing to, if they're willing to make comments about something, and we see the stuff on the resource, and then when we talk about the Connecticut, I mean the Ledyard Community Resource page, not that we're going to monitor the page, because the whole premise here is we're trying to drive people, give them information, and drive them to the best source for their issue, which is driving to the police department.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be tasked with the idea that the town is going to think we're going to be monitoring the community resource page, because I don't have enough time to keep with all the stuff I have now coming in electronically. I'd be buried. But I like the idea of making sure we go ahead.
I thought also, Mike, about the original statement that you had in the mission statement about a point of redress.
Yes.
I'm liking that more and more. And I'm thinking maybe one way to, and I'm not saying let's change the mission. I'm just saying I think it's a good idea that we should try to do that. And maybe we put ourselves out there as individuals and say, you know, if you have an issue with the town, contact me. I mean, that's our job as counselors anyway.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with that. I agree with that. When I see people, I was visiting somebody recently and they had an issue, and I said, well, I said, so let me see if I can help you out. And you know, I know who to talk to get them to go see you. And they didn't know who to talk to. All I did was connect the two people, and the problem went away. So yes, I agree completely, Counselor Soms.
Mm-hmm.
So could we attach the objectives and goals as written in the minutes to our mission statement as a separate topic? So you got mission, and then under that have objectives and goals, and list them and change them from time to time.
Yeah, I like that idea.
That does work, because then it's out front there, because as you just alluded to, the fact the mission statement can change over time, and those goals are going to change over time, because as we kill off, expression, but as we resolve issues, and they're no longer something that has to be constantly monitored, then we can put new ones on there. So yes, and I'm looking for my minutes. I just sorry, people.
Sorry.
Roxanne, would you be kind enough for the, oh gosh. No, I'm not seeing it. Sorry.
So
yes, I'm
so
all
Mike,
for.
I could make a motion, and I can just read it into the minutes.
That would be great. Thank you, Bill.
Read it out loud. Okay. So I move that the committee add objectives and goals to its mission statement as a separate topic, separate heading. And the objectives and goals would state as follows. The Community Relations Committee will establish simple benchmarks from time to time, including 1, public informational forums, scheduling 2 informational forums in 2021. 2, aim to attract 20 or more residents to attend the informational forums. And 3, obtain feedback and information from the community relative to their concerns and experiences with town services. Period.
Perfect.
Second.
Second? Any discussion? I think it fits right into the mission statement.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Councilor Ingalls?
Yes, sir. Oh, you're asking for a vote?
Sorry, call for a vote.
Sorry.
Councilor Ingalls?
Aye.
Councilor Soms?
It's all in the intonation. Yes, sir.
Counselor Washington votes yes.
Yes, sir?
Motion passes.
Sure.
Three approved. No abstentions. No nays. Motion passes. I gotta go back to my other sheet. Oh. Fixing number 2. Okay, as far as the discussion regarding the drafting of the memorandum of understanding between the tribe, going to just table that until we get with the tribe. We've sent something out to them, as everybody's aware. We're waiting for a response back.
We might want to send something again. I mean, it's been more than a month, right?
Roxanne, were they supposed? They had a cutoff date to send us stuff from the.
Right, you guys are gonna be meeting with them at your January 20th meeting.
Okay, okay.
So, when Crystal Whipple replied that they would be coming to the January 20th meeting, you know, we also, provided them with an opportunity to give us some things that they would like to also include on the agenda. So, I mentioned to Mike that I thought what I would do is, I had given her a deadline to get back to us for that January 20th agenda. So what I could do, if you would like, is when I send out an email reminder like, oh, by the way, please send us your items by such and such, I could say something like, the Community Relations Committee is hoping to get your feedback on the Memorandum of Understanding at that January 20th meeting, so that they'll be prepared to talk about it.
Yes.
Because I think what you guys will want to do is, us being the town, the Community Relations Committee will want to vote on it and send it to our town council. They're going to want to vote on it and send it to their council. And then when both councils approve, then we'll get it signed. So it's not like your two groups have to approve it together at your meeting. It's more that your governing bodies need to approve it, but you want to kind of be, no pun intended, on the same page when you present it to your council, us to the town council, theirs to the Mashantucket council. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Can you send that out in advance of our January 6th meeting?
Send it out to the Mashantucket?
Yes, only so that if we can get it back, if they have a position by January 6th, it'd be nice to know before they show up on the 20th.
Okay.
Okay, and ask them if there's anything they wanted to address by the Tuesday before the meeting, so that we can make sure it gets on the agenda.
Okay, so send out the request regarding the MOU in preparation for our January 6th meeting.
Correct. And getting information from them prior to our meeting for the agenda to go out for our meeting with them on the 20th.
Right. Okay.
Any other old business? There is none. I do have some new business. And the new business is, I reached out to Fred today, and I'm not sure if I haven't seen the response back. The food bank. Ledyard does a food bank. And the question I had really is, why does Ledyard do the food bank? It's not done, like the church doesn't do the food bank, or some other organization does its food bank. Is it something that Ledyard has always said they want to do the food bank? And so I don't have an issue with the food bank. I don't have an issue with the town providing resources to the food bank. But the question is it possible to move it to a different entity to control the food bank? So it's not a town, it's still a town, it's a food bank in town, it's run by people from the town. It could be one of the church services or 501c or something of that nature, a different organization running the food bank.
Mhm.
So it kind of pulls us out of the food bank business. Does that seem crazy? Or is that, or has that issue come up in the past? Because this thing it's grown.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing when it was used to be back in it was in the town hall, then it moved over to, because it got too big for there, it moved over to the church, and now it's gotten too big. It's gotten not so much too big for the church, but it's not the church doesn't have the facility structure to properly support it, so that the people who are working there have the appropriate things they need, like water, which is why we're going to the old Ledyard Center School. I'm just throwing it out there. Is that something that the town should be doing? I'm just asking the community relations group, because is it something we want to hold on to as a service that the town should be doing, or is it something that a service that should be done in the town, but not necessarily by town government?
Right. I can share a little bit of the history with you.
That'd be greatly appreciated.
Because I was on, and there's way more than I know, because this has been discussed for years. Before I was on Board of Ed and then Council, I was on the Social Services Advisory Board. And this goes back to when John Rodolico was mayor, and the shift was made from having the food pantry physically in Town Hall, and then moved to Ledyard Congregational Church. And there was the same really sort of question, is who can do this better, was really the heart of the question. At least the way I understood it was, who can do this better? It's my personal opinion that the faith community can just do a better job with these kinds of services, because they do it and they have the capacity to do it in a more holistic way. Again, my opinion. That was not everybody's opinion. There was very serious concern that if one of the churches took it on, they could decide that it wasn't something they wanted to do any longer, and that there would be no safety net, nobody there to pick it up. I recall one meeting of LICEF, Ledyard, what is it?
Interfaith?
Yeah. The Emergency Assistance Fund, the Interchurch Emergency Assistance Fund. And I was kind of checking out those meetings to see if there was, if I fit in that board in some way. And I asked the question, and the faith leaders really all felt the same way. And I think it was actually Katrina Grant who said to me, she's like, how much space, does your church want to take that on? How many volunteers? It was really a logistics issue that most of the churches felt like they could not handle.
Okay.
So when this idea came up of having the town do the vetting and the less, maybe the less friendly part of the job, but having the church host it, and then, having it more open to volunteers from all over town, that seemed to gain traction pretty quickly. And as far as I understand, it's been a good fit until this recent space issue came up. So I don't know if that helps to answer your question short, briefly.
A really long-winded answer to this. Everything you said is correct, Sandra. Going back 10 years or so, we had a town councilor who used to, during the budget workshops, used to challenge social services about their budget and how many turkeys they actually gave out and how much food they actually served versus the budget that the town was providing them. And it came up every year. And they were usually good answers. They were good questions, but they were also good answers. And the Congregational Church in 2013, 2014 decided not to run a nursery school anymore. They didn't want to be a daycare center, but they realized that declining membership in the nursery school was no longer a mission that was viable. And they they held a series of meetings about what should we do? What's our mission? What are we going to do next? And resolved that feeding the poor was in line with what churches do. And recalling the conversations on finance about $80,000 turkeys, I proposed to the church that we approach the town and offer to provide a space for the food pantry and provide volunteers. And long story short, what happened was the town pays rent to the church and has since 2015 for the space that the church provides. That's it. Linda got on board with the idea, loved it, and started posting on what was then the forum about the need for volunteers. And within 48 hours, we had 50 volunteers from the community because the church knew that they couldn't do it all by themselves. And the goal was to move feeding the poor from a town function to a volunteer and church function. And that's what's been happening for the last 5 years. Unfortunately, it's so successful that the church facilities are now too small, and we just don't have a way to make it continue to work, given the volume of guests that the pantry is hosting. So the church has made a number of accommodations and changes, and a huge amount of work by the volunteers, Linda leading. But it is actually not correct to say that the town does the food pantry. The food pantry is actually run by volunteers. It has a separate group of supervisors. There are 2 members of the church. Linda Davis is the third. The church hosts it. About a third of the volunteers are congregational church members, but the rest are from all over the town. And all we're doing with the move to Ledyard Center School is changing the facility. It's still not going to be a town function. The town's going to pay the rent as it has been, but it's really not a town function. It's a volunteer organization that's doing the work.
Who makes?
Bill, does the town vet clients?
Yes. Yeah, it's hard to
Okay.
completely disconnect the function of the town from the food pantry because social services does need to vet, as you said, Andra. They need to certify people. And there's
Right.
there's kind of a mixed message with the food pantry. The church's view is we will not turn anyone away. But in fact, you have to vet people. You have to make sure that people really have a need so that we don't give food to people who are just taking advantage. And that's a function for the town, not for a church. So yes, social services vets. Mary Beth Hubbard spends a considerable amount of time performing the town functions, just as the town has always performed them. They just have a bigger space and more people, arms and legs to collect the food, distribute the food, sort it, inventory it, and all that. So it's a joint town volunteer function.
So what I'm gathering out of that, Bill, is that as Councilor Engels kind of alluded to, the ugly portion of the food distribution is handled by town personnel, which is the ugly portion is when you have to vet somebody and tell somebody no. You know, that's an ugly part. It's a needed activity, which I clearly understand and I support, that you have to vet people, because otherwise we all know people will show up who have no real need for the service, but want to take it just so that because they can easily take the service, and that should not be the case. So the town's primary function on the vetting side is to then kind of insulate the volunteer staff from the nastiness that the general public can have when they're told no.
And I would say that's a rare occurrence. I mean, it can happen. It does happen, but it's, for the most part, it's a very positive process.
Okay. So I was just curious, not knowing the history and thinking, well, if it's a service, because other towns do it differently, you know, and maybe something the town wanted to look at to see, okay, is there another system? But if the town in general likes the process, then fine. I was just looking to see, is there other vehicles in place, other systems in place, other methods of delivering the same quality, doing more on a volunteer basis, which it is. But then I can see I can see the reason not to want to move the vetting part away, so the volunteers don't have to put up with that portion of it. If that's the intention. Yeah, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with the space or giving money to the social services for those endeavors to make sure we can feed the people who live in the town of Ledyard by no stretch of the imagination. Just wondering if there was a better mechanism in place to do it. And I guess this has been vetted before.
So actually, there was the social services had a small budget for the food pantry for food, and taxpayers paid for food purchases for the food pantry when it was in the town hall. Now, there are tens of thousands of dollars being donated by residents and organizations to the food pantry, not to the town, to the food pantry to buy food and cover their expenses. It's a phenomenal growth in the program. When it moved from the town, there was an average of 1 visit per day, and we're seeing like 100 a month now, up above and below that. It's grown tremendously, not only in clients but exponentially in donations from the public. So it's not just volunteers; it's public donations rather than taxpayer dollars. So it's working extremely well. I think it's going to continue to evolve. I believe there have been discussions with Rotary and maybe Lions and other churches, other organizations to also get involved because it will no longer be housed in the Congregational Church. So the thought was, the Rotary might be looking for additional projects. The Lions might be looking for additional projects. So this is a way for the entire community to participate, get involved.
Okay.
So it really is a volunteer effort, and it's donations funded. It's no longer town funded, with the exception of one part of one FTE to perform the social services vetting, as we call it.
Overall, my understanding is it's fewer taxpayer dollars for a far better service.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Nope,
and the community got involved, and I think to me, that's part of the benefit of letting the faith community take on some of those things. It is just
right.
Now there's a lot more love in the sauce.
Yeah.
Well put. Well put.
They were the first Boy Scout drive, as I recall, generated 5,000 items 5 years ago. This year's Boy Scout drive, 10,000 plus.
Wow.
That's food items on top of all the dollars that are donated, on top of all the volunteer hours. It's incredible.
That's great. That is really great. Well, that took care of my new business. That was an educational experience.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a second?
Second.
So moved. We are now, without exception, adjourned at. Oh, all in favor? Say aye. Sorry.
Aye.
All right.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Without exception, we are adjourned at 7:09.
All right.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Bye-bye.